Sophia Lawrence once said, "There's a fountain of youth. It is your mind, your talents, the creativity you bring to your life." Hey, creative souls, welcome back again with the second session of Hey, creative souls, welcome back again with the second session of Day 2 of Creative Circuit 3.0. Another session which we were all waiting for. Wonder who is with us? Of course you know. Do tell me, creative circuiters, why is the rum gone? Pirates of the Caribbean is one of the marvelous film production in the history of cinema. If I talk about our guest speaker, he's a Primetime Emmy Award winner. He's a prosthetic makeup artist who has worked on Pirates of the Caribbean as the prosthetic makeup artist in Star Wars, Elvis, and many more famous productions. Let me welcome Mr. Sean Andreas for the makeup art session.
Hello.
Sean, we have a small technical issue. Just hold.
We have a small, yep. I can't see you, but I can hear you now.
Yeah, actually, we have a small technical issue. Just so hold on. Hi, Sean. How are you today?
Hello, I'm very well. Nawodi, how are you?
Hi. So I feel great. So without any further delay, let's move on to our discussion.
Okay.
So could you define yourself, like who is Sean Gentis?
Oh, that's a complex question. Look, I guess in the sense of film, I'm a prosthetic makeup artist, which differentiates from regular makeup. I don't do hair or make people look nice. I make people look dead or rotten or fat or old or monstrous.
Okay, great. So you mentioned that you are prosthetic makeup artist. So can you explain what is prosthetic makeup art?
So prosthetic makeup is gets its term from prostheticians who replace people's limbs. So essentially, it's makeup. Prosthetic makeup is anything that is glued onto the body to to shift or alter the look or the feel of the character. It also goes into make what we call makeup effects. Makeup effects is blood and dirt and bruises and pale skin and all that sort of thing as well. Sometimes people call it special effects, but special effects is actually smoke and fire and wind. So there's a variety of names. Generally, people say prosthetics or prosthetic makeup artist.
Okay, so I think our audience got the idea what is prosthetic makeup art.
I'm
So may
sure
I
they do.
know how did you start your career? Like what led you to pursue prosthetic makeup art and why did you choose this field?
Well, it's a long story, but by accident, it actually chose me. Having grown up when I did, I always loved film and filmmaking. I never really set out to be a prosthetic makeup artist, but I guess I was multitasked as an artist all through high school and as a young man. Um, and then I started making monsters, and I began with making monsters out of paper mache and leather and fur and anything I could find to try and find a way to create some of the monsters out of film that I'd see, or even some of my own things. And I stumbled across another guy my age when I was about 19 called Jason Baird. He has an effects company called JMB FX Studio here in Australia. We became friends and we started making a lot of monsters together. And I think once, if you find something you really like to do, if you find something you love and you just do it enough and you keep practicing and trying to improve and trying to do it well, that people hear you do that thing, and next thing they start to ask you to make things for them. And then eventually one day someone will have some money to make something, and it just kind of snowballs from there. And I actually tried to not do prosthetics. I did take a bit of a 10-year break. I was looking at doing other things, still associated with film, but I wasn't quite sure. And then by that stage, Jason had built quite a big company, and he was tasked with designing and supervising the characters for Star Wars 2, at which time I was living in Sydney. And he rang me up to ask me if I wanted to work on Star Wars. And of course, I said yes. Who doesn't? So that's what
Great.
dragged me back into prosthetics. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so inspiring because so yeah. So my next question would be how did you learn everything? Like where you are right now?
Great question. Complicated answer. These days, when I started, there were no schools, there was no courses or colleges, there was no internet. There was a couple of books at the library that you could hire to read about makeup effects, and there were a lot of film magazines coming out of America and England, and we used to read those all the time and try and pick up tips. But essentially, the way to learn it, and the best way still to learn anything, is just to do it all the time. And I always kind of reference the term artist in the term makeup artist or film artist, whatever the different term is. An artist isn't somebody that just works for money. An artist is somebody who continually strives to express themselves in their chosen field, or to say something with the medium that they're using. And it's not so simple as doing a course and then getting a job. It still takes a lot of time of your own personal time to practice skills and to be okay with making mistakes, because in making mistakes in any chosen art form is the fastest way to learn anything, much more so than getting it right. So a lot of trial and error is how I learned. And then as you start to get onto films, and no two film jobs are ever the same, and you're constantly challenged by different things. They'll ask you to do something, and you'll go, "How do I do that?" And then you'll work out how to do the effect that's needed and try and do it to the best of your ability.
Yeah, you're right. So I will like I want to talk about some of your biggest project in the history as well. So you had contributed your service for Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, which is really
Hmm.
popular in our generation too. Could you tell
Okay.
us a little bit about the movie and your contribution and how the overall experience was?
Uh, okay, great. Star Wars 2 was back in 2000, which is 22 years ago now. But it was my the film that I came back to film on Star Wars. I'd had a break. I wasn't sure, and I just came in to what we call it doing dailies, additional work. So I wasn't on the team full time. I was coming in on the days where there was a lot of characters, a lot of creatures, and basically just putting people into background masks and looking after those people. Sometimes we could have 20 or 30 people wearing costumes, wearing masks, and we'd have to take the masks off when they had a break and keep them cool with little air conditioners in between filming. So it was pretty exciting for me. I'd been a Star Wars fan most of my life, well, since Star Wars came out anyway in 1977. And so it was an exciting job to do. It certainly gave me, it made me excited about film and wanting to do more movies. Sometimes being on set when they're shooting is kind of boring. That one was a lot of fun because there's a lot of masks, there's a lot of monsters. Um, and we all got to dress up as one. So because we were called the creature department, and basically we all were in the film. I played Senator Tesek, who is a squid face guy, and he wears a big red robe. So that was sort of fun, dressing up for a few days and walking around on set. I got to do a
Yeah.
scene with Christopher Lee, who's a bit of an icon with look, it's a lot of fun, and a chance to dress up and be in a costume and be one of the monsters was fun too.
Which means the amazing experience that you had on Star Wars back then, right? So, okay. So our audience is like waiting for days to know about Pirates of the Caribbean movie, right? So, can you share your experience there?
Yeah, Pirates. I did Pirates number five, which was the last Pirates film they made with all of the Ghost Pirates, Javier Bardem and everybody. So I actually went onto the film to do prosthetic contact lenses. So my initial job was to go on and put all the contact lenses in the eyes. All the Ghost Pirates had contact lenses. Jack Sparrow has contact lenses, and so does Barbossa, played by Jeffrey Rush. Scrum. So there's a lot of characters in that film that have contact lenses, and so my job was actually to clean the lenses and put them in the eyeballs for the shot. Quite often the actor won't wear the lenses all day long. They'll just put them in for the close-ups, take them out again at the end of the shot. So I went onto the film to do that. And then because I was doing Jack Sparrow's contact lenses, I got asked after the first couple of days to join the makeup team with Jack Sparrow, with his makeup artist Kenny Niederbaumer. And essentially, I was really looking after hands and covering tattoos and doing tattoos as well as the lenses. And it sort of occupied a lot of my time on that film. I still did get to do some of the Ghost Pirates, if you're familiar with the film. So I would go in, and there was a team from Sydney doing the ghosts. I would go in every time they were on, and I'd do whoever else needed to be done. So sometimes another makeup artist would be busy on a different character, so I'd do their ghost. So I was really had a really good time on Pirates of the Caribbean. I had a great time working with Johnny and as Jack Sparrow. A lot of fun. A lot of hard work, a lot of long hours, but we certainly had a very good time. And I was really very lucky on that job. I was working with Barbosa, Jeffrey Rush, and Jack Sparrow, and some of the ghosts. And it was a really interesting job for that reason. I got to do a lot of different things.
So that's mean you worked with ghosts, right?
Yes, I work with ghosts. Yes, love ghosts. Love ghosts.
Okay,
Ghosts, vampires, love it all.
great. So Star Wars Episode 2 was released in 2002, and the Pirates of the
Mhm.
Caribbean has been released in 2017. So how do you think prosthetic makeup art and the overall industry has changed over those years?
Great, another great question. It's changed a lot. So I'm going to get a bit technical now with terms. Back in times of Star Wars and up until 2000 and 2012, when I worked on Mad Max Fury Road. Are you familiar with Fury Road in Sri Lanka? Do you know that film,
Yeah,
Mad
yeah.
Max? Yeah. Okay. So uh, that was the first time that I used a lot of silicon prosthetics. So prior to then, all of the things that we glue on, all the monsters you see, and all the wounds and all the things we did were made out of a product called foam latex. So it was almost like cooking. You would cook this latex rubber in big mixers and bake it in the oven, and that's what all the bits that were glued onto the skin were made out of. Um, the hard part with that is that foam latex isn't see-through. It's what we call opaque, if you understand opaque. Whereas now we make things out of silicon, and silicon is already translucent like skin is. So that's the really, really big change that's happened in the last sort of 10, 15 years, to the point that now all prosthetics are silicon, except if you're doing a particular big creature, you'll still do the suit out of foam latex, just for reasons of weight and movement. Um, so I'll just talk briefly about Elvis, which we just did. I know it might not be a big film for Sri Lanka, but Tom Hanks is in it. So he's big. He and Austin Butler, who played Elvis, are all wearing fat suits. So the suits that go under their clothes were all made out of foam latex still and foam rubber, because to make them out of silicon would be too heavy. Whereas all of the face, all the fattening face that we did on Tom Hanks, and all of the things on Fury Road, all of the war boy scars and wounds and all those things you saw were all made out of silicon.
Okay, yeah, that was great. That's the evolution of prosthetic makeup art. So let me move on. You were the
Mhm.
part of a team that was able to win the Primetime Emmy for outstanding prosthetic makeup for a series, which is known as the Pacific Mini TV series. So could you tell us about how was that night, that moment that you, what did you felt actually?
Look, it's always nice to win. Um, but really, that job was amazing because I was on that job for 16 months. So normally a film lasts anywhere between 3 months to maybe seven on the big films. Films like Aquaman and Pirates go from around 7 months long. But the Pacific I was on for a year and a half because we built 40 bodies. We had to build all these things. There was months and months of making everything for the series. And then we filmed it for nearly a year in various locations around Australia. So uh, uh, some jobs some jobs are always particularly fun to work on. Some are good to watch. You know, not all films that we don't like to see are fun to work on. Pacific was an amazing experience, an amazing time for how long we filmed it, and also for how much we did. At the end of the day, we had 80 prosthetic bodies that we could lay around on sets. Plus, we were injuring and killing up to 15 to 30 extras and people a day to be seen in the background or being shot and blown up. So the real thrill is always in the job. I have to give credit to Jason Baird, who I mentioned before, because in all that time, because Pacific was shot in 2007, 2006, 2007. He built such a big company that he was given that job. Now he designed all of the effects, and he's in charge essentially. And I'm the guy that goes onto the film set for him so that he can liaise between the film set and the shooting, and also the things that are constantly being built in the workshop. But it is to his credit that the Emmy was won. So um, we were very, very happy to have won it. It was really nice. I think as Australians also in what is essentially an American award. But we're really proud of the series more than anything. And it's always nice, certainly having an Emmy brings more work my way. And as I said, it's nice to always win rather than lose. But at the end of the day, um, it's the work, it's the job that's really exciting, and that's the award's just the icing on the cake. It was really nice. It's a year later when you get the award as well, because it's a year before the film's released and everybody's seen it, and they start handing those things out. Mm.
Okay, yeah, that was great. So you worked on a major blockbuster recently, Elvis. So could you tell us about a little bit and how was working with Tom Hanks?
It's always really great to work with actors of that caliber. I mean, they don't come any bigger. They're the most professional people on the planet, the ones that really rise to the top. And I think that's probably true in any field. Um, Professional, courteous, and just there to do the work. And I often say, we're not just hanging around having a good time all day. He would be in our makeup chair anywhere between 4:30 and 5:30 a.m. in the morning for 3.5 to 4.5 hours. So in that time, we don't really talk. He closes his eyes, he stays in the chair, and he zones out or does whatever he does while we glue and paint. And it doesn't really matter to us who's sitting in that chair. They really do become a canvas. It could be anybody. We're so focused on gluing the edges down and getting the prosthetic to fit nicely. And then once it's all glued down, then we'd have to paint it, and it's painted by dots. If you see any close-ups of that particular makeup, which I'm very proud of, designed by an Englishman called Mark Collier, we would literally we flick color, but we paint with dots, and we'd spend 2 hours just doing dots and tiny little capillaries on the nose and freckles and moles. But for every freckle that you see, there's 200 that you don't. But all those dots go to help make the skin look realistic. And the difficulty with that particular makeup was that it does join the skin. So without giving away where the edges are, the top half of Tom was his actual skin. He shaved his head to be bald, but all of this fat face was glued onto his skin. So anytime you glue silicone onto a skin, there's a line. And our trick, and where we'd spend the most time painting, is blending that layer off between where the silicone hits the skin and trying to make both things look the same. You do that by taking some of the color onto the skin and not being too heavy on the edges, because the edge of a prosthetic gets really thin. So you've got to put not as much color on the thin part, because his skin underneath is seeing through. That's the greatest challenge. But it's an absolute pleasure. Then you go to work. So we've already done 3.5 hours of makeup. Then we go to work. They shoot for 12 hours a day with Tom. And in that time, my role is there to service the look of the character. Tom's there to be, or any actor is there to be in the character and focusing on the character. So again, we hang out, but we don't really hang out. It's not like we're just having a good time. We're there working and very focused on what our job is. And while I'm there looking at the makeup all day to fix things, if an edge lifts up or a dot needs to be added, there's also someone from costume there looking after the costume, making sure the collar's right and the cuffs are all good. And this is how we spend our day. Then at the end of the day, it would take about 45 minutes to an hour to clean all of the prosthetics off. And that's when you have a bit of a chat and usually a few laughs and unwind from the day ahead. But as you can see, it's very long days. It's 14 to 16 hours on those big jobs for me to be going to work. And then I have 10 hours off, and then we go back and we do it all again. And we did it 54 times on Tom Hanks.
Okay, which means it's a one single simple thing, but it's really hard to have the amazing experience with Tom Hanks. So what inspiration into building such unique and iconic characters through makeup? How you do it, and do you take any inspiration from real people, or is it all imagination?
Well, a lot of the time on the bigger films, they tell us what they want. So it's already there's a designer who designs the looks. For the smaller jobs and my own things, my inspiration comes from a few places. Um, I love monsters. I love monsters in film, and monsters in film have been around since 1922 with Nosferatu, and as old as cinema itself, they've always been making films about monsters because monsters are meant to tell the story of the beast in humans. Beauty and the Beast, the Wolf Man, they're all about the darker side of humanity. So I really like that. If I'm working on something that's been seen before, like a vampire, then I'm always trying to think of how do I make it different? What kind of animal is it? And sometimes you look to nature for a lot of those things. I think there's a lot of inspiration in nature in shapes and leaves and colors of dried leaves and the veins in leaves and palm fronds and all sorts of natural things, rock textures. And there is a lot of inspiration in that. But also, I think also looking to young filmmakers and where young artists are doing and what they're trying to do, you don't want to be too caught up in you don't want to get too caught up in what you think you already know. You sort of got to keep fresh. You've got to listen to new music as well as old music, and it's the same with cinema. You've got to look at what's being made now by young, upcoming independent filmmakers as well as the seasoned professionals. And I think always, if I have an idea for a makeup, the first thing I do now is I Google it, A, to see if it's been done. If it hasn't been done, then great, I can do whatever I want. But if it has been done before, how do I make it different? And why is it different? So again, I think we're always going back to looking at uh, every 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 makeup is a character. So we use the makeup to try and help express to the audience who the character is, how they feel about themselves. Obviously, if they're overweight, if we put big fat prosthetics on there, they don't like to exercise as much. They don't look after themselves. So you're always looking for those telltale signs. If you're dealing with a monster, then you're always looking to work out, what kind of animal it is and why does it do the things it does and how does it do them. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Maybe?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So you were worked in like several, like you have a long journey in makeup artist, right? So what are your like, what did you face as a makeup artist? What's your biggest challenges that you were working through over these years?
Um, there's a few. One is work. You're not always busy. There's not always work around. I've been very fortunate. I have worked a lot of places overseas. I've been to New Zealand and Fiji. I worked in India on a zombie film. Hopefully Sri Lanka one day. I have worked in LA once. But generally speaking, you get work in the country that you live in because it's much more cost effective for a production. If you were making a film in Sri Lanka, the trick would be to try and find a Sri Lankan artist that can do the work on the ground. So the difficulty with that is here in Australia, we're always making a lot of films. A lot of films right now, not all films have prosthetics. So you can go from a very very big prestigious job one minute and the next on something very low budget. But I also think that's a nice thing. Challenging your own skills is the second thing that's the most challenging. You have to keep practicing your art form. And I know I mentioned that earlier. I put makeup artistry or prosthetic makeup artistry down to the same thing as buying a guitar. You don't buy a guitar and join a band. You spend 10 years playing it very badly and trying to learn chords. So it's the same of makeup artistry. You have to practice. You have to glue things on your friends or on yourself and come up with ideas and make things at home. That's where you really, really do develop. The third most difficult thing is finding the right people to work with, because you spend 12 to 16 hours a day on set in a makeup bus. And I would say that people's personality is 50% of why we choose them to work with us. You can teach people skills and the way to do things, but you can't teach manners all the time. So I find that the hardest thing and probably for everybody, to find your people, to find the people that do the same thing as you or can learn those things to have around all the time, because it's a very intense job. We spend a lot of time together, for sometimes 7 to 9 months. So you've got to get along. You've got to be able to communicate well, and clearly, and you have to be able to sort any problems out very fast as well.
Yeah, so it's not easy as it is, right? You were facing many challenges, but we are only seeing the outcome. Okay, let
Yes.
me move on to our next question. So, could you tell us how was the overall process of applying prosthetic to a motion picture works? Who contacts you initially, and then what happened? How does the entire process flow?
For me, so I'm a freelance artist, so I'm just me. I don't have a company or a workshop. Most 80% of my work is with Jason, who I mentioned before. He has a workshop. He is the biggest and most successful Australian prosthetics company that we've ever had. And so a lot of the time, we're also very good friends. He just rings me up and says, I've got a job, come and work. Other times it's the producers will call, and sometimes it's a makeup artist. So if a makeup designer's got a job and there's some prosthetics involved, they might give me a call to see if I'm available for starters, and also quite often to get ideas about how to shoot something or what things they may need. So generally, it's always a different thing. As I said, most of 80% of my work has been with Jason, but then my biggest jobs have been without him. So Leslie Vanderwalt is a makeup designer on Mad Max and Furiosa, which is being shot now. I know her, so people call me up because we kind of know each other. The beautiful part about being in Australia is, and having been around for a while, is there aren't a lot of people that are doing what I do at this level, I guess. I've got 30 years experience now. I still enjoy a challenge, but with the bigger films come here, they know that they have to, get the right people to get the thing done. That I usually get a call, and I've been very fortunate as a prosthetic artist to do lead characters, which doesn't always happen in my field. Quite often it's a makeup field, but working with Johnny Depp on Pirates and Jason Momoa on Aquaman, and now Tom Hanks, and with Austin Butler as well, and Elvis, Clive Owen I worked with years ago on Killer Elite. I've been fortunate to do lead characters, which is it's very rare, I think, in my field, but I'm very thankful for the opportunity.
Okay, so you might get like a lot of projects when you are working. So how do you decide whether to accept or reject the project, and what are the key factors that affect your decision?
It almost happens naturally. There's always about 3 or 4 projects circling around us or me. There's always people calling you up. Oh, this is coming, that's coming. Are you free? Are you available? Sometimes it comes down to travel and money. Just this year, I turned down a job in New South Wales, which is Sydney. I didn't want to be away for a very long time this year. I was also offered a job in New Zealand, which is only 3 hours away, but it's being away from home for 12 months now. It doesn't interest me as much as it used to. So sometimes I'm picking a job for the location. Sometimes I pick a job because it's the only job that's around. And it usually comes down to the people and what's involved for me. So if someone was offering me a zombie film and a chance to work on something different and really interesting, I'd always take the interesting because I've done zombies. So if it's something new and challenging, that would be the best thing. Sometimes it comes down to money, and I hate to sound so base, but that's what film's about. Someone's got the right rate. I find myself now looking for more interesting work. So I'm actually dealing with a few first-time filmmakers, and hopefully be doing some work with those guys because they have young, fresh ideas, and it's nice to do a lot of work for not as much money, just for the point of doing art, just for the sake of being creative. So that's how I choose. Sometimes they choose me, sometimes I choose them.
Okay, so what I got is, if you got a zombie movie, you will get, right?
Yeah, if it's a zombie film, I get a call. I've been
Okay.
speaking to some people in India about a big zombie series, but I don't know. I think for me, creatively, when I think of zombies, I think of The Walking Dead. I had some friends working on that and designing that. They did an amazing job, and I think you have to do something different with the zombies. You can't just try and do the same zombies. There was one film in Australia a few years ago that approached me to do zombies, and I wanted to do them different, and they didn't want to do them different, so I didn't do that job. I just want to be challenged as an artist. I want to be challenged creatively and try and do something a bit different.
Great. So, which means we can see some different and many more prosthetic makeup art by you if you got a chance to work with another level of zombie movie, right?
Yeah, maybe, you never know. As long as the
Oh,
zombies are different. Yeah.
okay. So, my next question would be, how do you turn prosthetic makeup art concept into something tangible? Does it always come out the way that you planned?
Hmm. No. um, Generally, you're given sketches. So a big film, a big production will engage concept artists to draw pictures. Sometimes those images are very comprehensive, and sometimes they're just very basic. But even in that process, there's still we generally have input. So basically, you take the drawing and then basically you make a sculpture of it. So sometimes now we're doing those sculptures digitally in ZBrush. If you're familiar with ZBrush or any of the three-dimensional sculpting programs, we're doing more and more of that now, and actually 3D printing the concept. Whereas we used to always basically take a copy of the actor's face and then sculpt with plasticine and clay onto the copy of their face so that the prosthetic fits them perfectly. In that process, in that design phase, you're generally working with the director of the film and usually the producers if it's a big film, and changing things as you go along a little bit, because sometimes you don't know till you see the prosthetic glued on how it's really going to look. With digital sculpting, it's actually a lot easier to change things, and we've been even doing digital monster teeth now, where you can sculpt the teeth. You scan someone's teeth, make a digital file, sculpt them in a digital sculpting platform, and then the director or producer can come in and see them in 3D on screen and change that tooth and change that tooth and tweak that one. And you can do it instantly. And then we print those teeth and then we mold the teeth. And so it makes the process of changes a lot easier. It's very difficult when you've done a whole alien head and you take it to set or even test makeups and you have to change things. It can be a lot of work. So the digital realm is really getting involved now. So any digital artists out there should hone their skills and get into three-dimensional heads, because it's the future.
Okay. So my next question would be, how hectic is the life of a prosthetic makeup artist? Like, do you have time to spend with your friends and spend time with yourself? Is it too busy?
No, it's just a normal life. Look, it's a job. I have plenty of spare time. When you're working, you don't. So when I'm on a job, if I take on a big job, a job like Elvis or Aquaman or Pirates, then for the duration of that time, I work a lot of hours in a week. You can work up to 70 hours. Where most people, I'm not sure what it's like there. Most people here work sort of 45 to 50 hours a week in 5 days. So the bigger films do consume a lot of your time, which is another reason it's really nice to be at home, so you can be with your wife on the weekends and be with your friends. Sometimes those shoots start doing 6 days a week, but I generally find I get a bit of a break in between projects. And sometimes I can get a few months, which is a really nice time to just unwind and prepare for the next thing, and also to work on my own projects, which is, as any artist, is kind of the most exciting thing and always the most interesting.
Okay. So as we heard, you also have a career in filmmaking, producing and directing. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
I have a very little career in producing and directing. Look, as I said earlier, I was never quite sure what I wanted to do in film. I know that I like film. I thought I wanted to direct, so I did. I made a couple of short films, which I produced as well with a partner and other people, and directed. And I made a bunch of music videos. I did things like that. But what I discovered in that process was it wasn't about directing for me, it's about the creation, it's about the writing. So I've been writing a lot for a very long time. In fact, if I really look back, I've kind of been writing all my life. But at the moment, my focus is on what we call creating content. So I've got a few projects that I'm writing with other writers as well to then try and turn into a TV series. We've got a graphic novel coming out later this year, and I'd like to do a bit more of that work. I really enjoy the collaboration of writing a story and trying to understand what the story is really about, how it's about the people. And obviously, I write a lot with monsters in it, a lot of vampires at the moment, but it's always about uh, looking for what the humanity is in the monster and how what it like any good story can tell us about ourselves. That's what I'm really very passionately interested in right now, and hoping to maybe shift a little bit away from prosthetics in the future. Maybe I'll always come back and do something if it's good, but if I can turn writing and creating shows into a living, that's right. That's where my heart lies right now. That's what I'd really like to do more of.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe in the future we will might see your productions in, right?
I hope so. That would be great. That would be really good. We'll
Okay.
see. Hmm.
So we are
I'll let you
counting
know.
on it actually. So my next question would be, has it always been smooth sailing in the industry? Like, you have to work one movie after one movie. So are there times where there is no work? What do you do
Hmm.
during these times?
Yes, look, sometimes there's no work, especially in a smaller country. I'm not sure what the film industry is like where you are in Sri Lanka, but there's always breaks, there's always gaps. When you work on a film, especially a big film, you save all your money. You have to learn. When you first start out in film, when a film stops and there's no work, you start to panic. But after a few years, you get used to the lifestyle. So you save everything you can when you're on a film, and you plan your time well. Um, I haven't had to do anything else for a living for a very long time. Um, but then I've had times where there's no work for a few months, or little jobs pop up. But things always do now. Things always seem to turn up, and you get more relaxed about that as you go on. When you're starting out as an artist, you'll have to find another job. All the young artists that I mentor right now, they're all struggle with the same thing. They've got to learn their skills, but they've got to pay the rent and eat. So generally, young artists start to work part time on different things. Sometimes in film, sometimes not even related to film. But you do what you have to do in order to get by. And I think you may not end up wealthy from working in film, but you can have a nice life. I have very good friends that I've made from working in film. I have a beautiful wife. I've been able to buy a little house. So it may not bring riches, but it will bring richness of life if you're doing something that you truly enjoy. That's um that's that's the best part, I think.
Okay. So my next question is kind of interesting. So what is the one thing you wish you knew when you started off your career as prosthetic makeup artist? It can be about the industry, about the work, or about the clients.
Great question. It's a tough one. I wish I knew I was going to end up. I might have worked harder. I wish I knew how to save money better. Um, uh, no, I wish uh, to work hard on your own things, to work hard after hours, to push the art a bit more. I think when I first started, I mean, I came when I first started doing stuff, I was making a lot of things of my own, and then I did Star Wars, and then I sort of went back to a normal job, and then I did the Matrix, and I think I could have probably dedicated more time uh, doing more art when I was a bit younger, when I was starting out, more of this kind of art, practicing my sculpting, practicing my mold making, practicing. I used to draw a lot, drawing and writing more than anything else, but I could have, yeah, done more of that, I guess. But I don't know, it's worked out. It turned out okay, so I'm pretty happy.
Okay. So I think I want to ask this from you in the beginning, but I keep it up to for the end. So what advice would you have for someone who wants to take the prosthetic makeup art as a career? Someone who is like taking the baby steps into the industry, someone who wants to go to an Emmy. What's your advice?
Work hard and enjoy it. Start practicing. Practice every day. Every day. You have to, if you want to do prosthetics, there's so many ways you can learn to do prosthetics now. The internet is amazing. I mean, there's all sorts of people doing tutorials, some of them good, some of them not so good. You can join the Stan Winston online school out of LA. That will tell you everything you'll ever need to know about making prosthetics. But at the end of the day, you have to practice and you have to sacrifice things. You have to sacrifice going out maybe or buying a new shirt or spending money on shoes because you've got to buy clay. You've got to learn how to sculpt and just to persevere, keep going. I have young artists around now, and we mentor a lot of young artists, but the onus is on them to go home and work. You've got to sculpt a cut, and the first one's not going to be good. But the second one will be better, and the 10th one will be better than that, and the 100th one will be excellent. So you've got to persist. You've really got to and find a way to enjoy the process, and do it when you don't feel like it. Be disciplined. There's a saying we have here. Anyone can do it when they feel like it. When you're in the right mood, it's easy to do anything. When you don't feel like it, that's when you pick up the guitar or the piece of clay or whatever your artistic form is. That's the time to bog down and just keep working and practicing when you're not enjoying it. Even just keep going. The more practice you get, the sooner you'll get good at it. And try and have fun. It's not that serious. We're just making people bleed, and it's kind of fun. It should be fun. So try and have fun.
Okay. So what a great advice. Yeah, I also agree with you. We have to try hard to get what we want. So, so Sean, are you working on anything right now? If you are working, could you tell us a little bit about it, if possible? Film prosthetics. I'm sort of working on 3 things. 2 of them I can't talk about. One of them we've just started on Kong versus Godzilla 2. So I worked on a film called Kong Skull Island 6 years ago, and we made all of these natives with this very heavy prosthetic makeups. They were 5-hour prosthetics, those guys. They were very big. We're doing a different version of them now, I think, but very early days. We're just doing testing stages for that. And there's something else that I can't talk about that's I think we're doing as well. So I'm going to be very busy between now and the end of the year, but mostly in a workshop building things, not so much on set. We've got some things to make. We've got some monsters to make. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. And then we'll see what. I never know too far ahead. As I said, there's always projects around, and it's just a matter of which one lands. But I think I'm kind of busy now till the end of the year. There's a couple of small projects around too that I might be able to hop onto, and there's a film with Russell Crowe, I think, that I might do a little bit on. But I'm going to be pretty busy, and I'm trying to write in my spare time. So yeah. Okay. So that means you gave us a hint about Godzilla 2. So yeah, we will be waiting for that. You also mentioned once when we took a meeting with you that you heard about Sri Lanka, about Ravana and some monkeys. So could you tell us about what did you heard exactly?
Well, it's funny. I think I remember doing a project when I was in primary school about Ceylon. But I'm very aware of Sri Lanka. I wish I'd been there, but haven't. I just came across this great story. I'm actually I'm writing a vampire story that's set in Indonesia, and we came across this temple there with this guard, and you have to excuse me if I pronounce it wrong, called Rakshasa, I think, Hindi garter of temples, and I just did more and more research from that because I find it fascinating. I find history fascinating. All these different monsters and creatures and beliefs from all across time, they all have different names, but they seem to be the same thing. So I mean, you can go back as far. I mean, India has them, and Indonesia has their own. I think Indonesians call them the Kuntilanak. I got the pronunciation wrong. There was this demon in Indian folklore called Lakshma. She may be in your history as well. So I came across this monkey king who apparently fought the Rakshasa and defeated them, and I just find that depth of story very interesting, and the richness of the history of the world. I think the history that I was taught going through school years here has pretty much all been wrong, and we're much older than we think. And I find ancient cultures very fascinating, and there's a richness in the stories there, and there's a lot of monsters. It's good.
So yeah, I think okay. Thank you, Sean. I think that's it for the main Q&A. So we have some questions for you from the audience. As you know, we
Uh,
have a large crowd. So we have a big Star Wars fans joining us on FB, and they have some questions. So
okay.
some of one is saying she had read that Natalie Portman got a last minute hair and makeup in episode 2. How does last minute makeup affect you as a makeup artist?
Sorry, how does what affect me?
Like she's asking how does last minute makeup affect you as a
Oh,
makeup artist?
last minute
Yeah.
effects. Look, it's always challenging. Basically, anything in film, no matter what department you're in, whether you're camera or costume or makeup effects, it's all problem solving. You are constantly being challenged all day long. I remember there was a moment on Star Wars 2 where we had these extras wearing Greedo masks. I'm not sure what the creature's called, and they were just about to start shooting, and one of them pulled his nose off. I had to run in and glue this nose on and get out because the camera was rolling, and so there's always problems. Um, but that's sort of what we do more than anything. We problem solve.
Okay. So we have another question from our audience. Give me a second. So Star Wars universe consists of so many
Hello,
Hello, Mr. Sean. We have
hello,
a
we're back. Hello, you went. Hello, you hear me? Yeah.
okay. So I will ask the question because we have
Yes.
some technical issues. So the question was Star Wars universe consists of so many non-human species. So was it a
Mhm.
challenge to work with George Lucas if the makeup wasn't up to his perfect image of that particular character?
George Lucas is the easiest person to work with in the world. Very, very nice man. Look, it's Star Wars it's a big job. It's undoubtedly, and I've only worked on that one, and that was a long time ago. But I know a lot of the people that work on the new ones, and they all say the same thing. They're all a lot of fun because there's so many characters, there's so many creatures. And when I did that one, and all the ones they're doing now, they use a lot more practical effects again. So a lot of puppetry, which is a lot of fun. But a lot of them aren't glue-on prosthetics. So a prosthetic is where we glue it to the skin. A lot of Star Wars is masks. Very nice masks, very well made masks, but a lot of them are things that you can just slip onto a head. It makes the job a bit easier.
Okay. So I think we have another question. So you have worked on Kong Skull Island, if I'm not mistaken. So what is the role of a
Mhm.
prosthetic makeup artist in movies like that, which involves many supernatural beings?
Well, we worked on that particular film. We worked with these natives. They call them the iwi. I'm not sure if you've seen the film. Huge challenge because it was a very, very big look, And the first, if you ever see the film Kong Skull Island, the first iwis that we see appear to walk out of a stone wall. So we had to develop a way to make them look like stone. There were 5 layers of different colors. Things were flicked on, and we had bits of moss and all sorts of things on them as well. Um, the difficulty with that job in particular is that we filmed here in Australia for about 2 weeks, and then we went to Vietnam and we had to film there. So again, to keep costs down, we can't take everybody to Vietnam. So we trained everybody here, and then we took only 8 people with us, and then we trained 45 Vietnamese artists over 3 days to do these prosthetics with us for the following few weeks of shooting. And then I went to Los Angeles and did the same thing again. So those films, as far as Kong goes, they don't really need us. You know, the monkeys all VFX, but it's more for wounds or unusual makeup effects where anything's glued to the skin or there's just a different look they're trying to get. They were very big makeups in Vietnam, and I'm sure if you've seen the film, you'll understand. We were in starting work at 2:30 in the morning to have them ready for 8:30 for shooting, and then they'd shoot all day, and then we'd clean them up at night. It took another couple of hours, operating on minimal sleep.
Okay, so I think we have another question. So what's the process of researching into famous figures from the past when being involved in makeup artists for films such as Elvis?
Well, I didn't have to do any for myself, a little bit, but it's more comes onto the designer, the person that makes the prosthetic. Because the trick with prosthetics is you want them to look like the character, but you also want them to be their version of the character. So certainly with designing Tom Hanks, it wasn't about making him look like an exact spitting image of Colonel Parker, who he plays in the film. It was about making him look different to how he normally is, making him look like a bigger version of himself in a way, rather than trying to disguise him completely. The audience still want to see the actor. And that's where it gets, there's a fine line. And it's a really interesting question because it is, that's the balance of creating the historical figure, but also letting the actor be the actor underneath. And that just comes down to good design decisions, I guess. Austin Butler wears prosthetics in the Elvis film as well, but we don't talk about them because you don't know where they are. But we went through a lot of trial to find the right thing, because sometimes it can just look like they're wearing a mask and not letting the actor come through enough. So yeah, that's a good question. It's a challenging thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's from our audience. So I think you have answered the question from our audience. So thank you so much everyone for your questions. So Sean, there's one last question from our end. Finally, can you tell me what do you think about Creative Circuit 3.0, like where we appreciate backstage heroes and bring them to the spotlight?
Your artist, you're saying, sorry?
A question like, finally, what do you think about Creative Circuit 3.0? Like, you are a guest speaker for Creative Circuit.
Oh, I think this is great. That's why I'm involved. You know, look, I love to talk about what I've done. I like to talk about art. I like to talk about life and film. I love film. I just think I think programs like this are so much easier now because of Zoom. I'd rather be there in person, to be honest. But it's a chance to talk and reach audiences of people that want to be filmmakers. And I say to anyone thinking about making film, just do it. It's easier than ever before to make film. You can research whatever you need, whether it be blood effects, makeup effects, or costume, or how to make an alien. You can film things on a phone. I mean, it's so much easier than ever before. You can easily get little editing programs on your phone that you can use to make film, and I just tell a story and make a film about something, at least one. But it's a great program. I'm really happy to have been involved. Thanks so much for your time. I love to talk about everything, and it's been an absolute pleasure. So I hope there's some budding filmmakers that see it and get inspired to get out there and do stuff, and don't be afraid of making mistakes. Just make something, because that second thing will be better. Just keep going, just keep doing things and try and have fun.
Okay. So I want to say thank you so much, Sean, for joining us. So this comes to the end of our session. We had an amazing discussion about prosthetic makeup art. Hope our audience got a what's behind the screen of makeup art. So yeah, that's it. So I am signing off as your host, and I'm now the Gaspe. So stay tuned, guys. We will be having the next session of Creative Circuit 3.0 at 5 p.m. Join us again to meet Mr. Prakar Agnihorty about visual effects in major movies in the industry.
All right. Thank you.
What is AIESEC? AIESEC is the world's largest international youth-run organization which functions with the objective of developing youth with their leadership abilities. We have been providing leadership activities as well as international internships and volunteering experiences for global youth. What is AIESEC in University of Sri Jayawardhanapura? AIESEC in University of Sri Jayawardhanapura has been giving opportunities for graduate youth to empower their skills and talents for a long time. We have been enhancing our local committee by providing high-quality experiences and services to our members and exchange participants. What is Outgoing Global Talent and Outgoing Global Teacher? In AIESEC, the Outgoing Global Talent and Outgoing Global Teacher are responsible for providing globally recognized internships for the youth to develop their future career. Our internships are offered in all fields ranging from engineering, IT-related opportunities like software development, software engineering, business-related opportunities like business administration, business development, marketing, language teaching, as well as subject teaching. What sort of benefits does it offer? All our opportunities are facilitated with more benefits like free accommodation, free food, free airport pickups, and also a dazzling monthly salary. Other than that, the intern gets a globally recognized certificate, gain a multicultural working experience, can expand their professional network, and most importantly, they can kickstart their career with a bunch of novel experiences. What is Outgoing Global Volunteer? The Global Volunteer Program of AIESEC provides a cross-cultural volunteering experience in different countries for youth from aged 18 to 30 with the motive of developing your leadership skills. Our volunteering projects are aligned with sustainable development goals, which allow you to contribute to a greater social impact in an environment out of your comfort zone in a period of 6 weeks. Free accommodation, free meals, airport pickup and departure support, international recognition as a global volunteer are some of the endless benefits you can get as a global volunteer. Your radiant future is calling you. Take the best move to start a new version of your life. Get in touch with AIESEC.